Listeners, you are tuned into the Iron Sharpens Iron show, and I am your host, Latrice Cook, sitting here today just trying to get my mind right. Just listening to the show a little bit earlier on with Tracy helped really try to alleviate some of the things that are going on and that are bottled up in this mind of mine. But as usual, I am so happy to be able to be on this mic this afternoon, being able to shed some things about the criminal justice system, those persons, places or things that are involved with prison, jail, any of those things that are associated in and around the criminal justice system. So I just want to let you know that Iron Sharpens Iron has totally been a show that is focused on those things and resources available to people who have had an experience within the criminal justice system. And as a founder of an organization called Melch, we are an organization that is based on supporting and providing resources for this same population and their families. So, I never take for granted that this is an opportunity to provide information and content for persons who may not otherwise have the opportunity to hear about things in a big way, about this situation and how or where their levels of support are. So if you'd like to join into this conversation today, you can do so at 512-836-2887, 512-836-2887, or you can also contact us at our office at 512-473-2525, 512-473-2525. This is an important show. Why? Just because there is a total focus on the things that affect this system and people who have been held by this system and still, even upon release, may be paroled and still a part of this system. Their family members who are affected, because truly when your loved one goes to prison, so do you. Incarceration affects a person so vastly and for such a long-term period that there has to be dialogue and there has to be something that is being fed into this issue on a regular and consistent basis. Why? So that people can understand that there is help, there is support, there are places and people who are committed to making change to this issue, this very important issue, this issue that affects people all around this world. Prison, incarceration, wrongful incarceration, law enforcement, all those things that contribute to impact a person's life if they've been incarcerated. And so that's what this is all about. 512-836-2887. We just got back from Chicago and we were really fortunate to be able to attend the APPA conference, which I have been doing for about 9 or 10 years. And a lot of people who are involved in criminal justice reform and criminal justice work of any type, whether you're an activist or you are an actual resource provider, it is important for people to find out about this, because this is a national conference that brings all those persons who are practitioners in this industry together. And it basically is an opportunity to learn, and not only learn, but even find out what some of the new technology is, devices and processes and stuff that affect the people who we are talking about. Those people who have been released from prison, or those people that are even in custody, because of course you have probation officers, parole officers, you have all the top brass administrations from the federal government as well as local state entities that attend this. It is a absolute must if you are in the industry to attend these types of conferences to advance your knowledge in this system and the things that are transpiring and technology as it is advancing to make things more easier for those people who are the incarceral system, or who have a part of the incarceral system, to either monitor or watch or infiltrate a person who has had this ill. 512-836-2887 is the number here at KZI if you want to join into this conversation. So that's an important thing. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show. Actually, one of my staff is here to talk about their experience, just the experience of the conference, let alone the experience of Chicago itself, which is a phenomenal city. And I actually had the opportunity while there, and again, we'll talk about on the second half of my actual involvement in radio there with Congressman Danny Davis, who is monumental in criminal justice legislation in and for not just Chicago, but for the United States. Some of his insight, and also some of his personal involvement in trying to push things to be a better way for persons that have experienced being incarcerated. He is one of the first people to continue to pursue and push for measures that the federal government would acknowledge reentry and the things that are associated with imprisonment in the federal system. And so I had the opportunity on two different occasions to be able to be with him, but definitely one where we were actually on air and had the opportunity to discuss some of the things that are still very much alive and well as it refers to needs for legislation to soften the blows for people who have been incarcerated and their families. I thought about some things. Next time I'm on, I want to unpack this whole situation about the Black Fund and all of the ins and outs about that, the people who purportedly are the founders of the Black Fund, and what the Black Fund means and where that was really and truly birthed from. So I want to be able to talk about that on the next show. But when it comes to talking about just where we are, I've been actually doing this work for about 19 years. And as I traveled and as I talked to many of the different people that were representative of the state of Texas who were at this particular conference, as well as just in general, I wanted to speak about, just how far we still haven't come. What does it mean when we are talking about really reforming? What does that mean? Because when I think about 19 years ago, it was impossible for a person who had a felony, whether they were working on their job for 5 years, had been free, and were actually a contributing member to society now as far as being an employed person. They cannot even get a lease in their own names. They can't have their own place unless somebody puts the application in for them. This was 19 years ago. In 2022, we are still having this conversation about lack of housing, not even lack of housing, but housing specifically that people that have a felonious background can obtain. It's none. And it's not just a Texas thing. It's a nationwide thing. Why are we still having this conversation? Why has nothing really truly been done to eliminate this very, very big need, a necessity? This is a necessity. Having somewhere to live is not an optional thing. You need a place to live, and not a sober house, not a room in a place, not transitional housing because you can't get you a place. I'm talking about a lease to an apartment or a house for a person who has a family, or for a person who has had their job for more than 5 years. Why are we still having this conversation? Millions of dollars are all around us by various corporations, the city of Austin, Travis County, they're talking about affordable housing. Affordable housing is all good and fine, but what about housing that's affordable for people that have a challenged background, who are employed people who have stabilized their life in spite of being denied and excluded from an opportunity to have their own place? What about those persons? What are we doing to really address that for real? What is affordable housing good for if we don't let the least of them who are working and saying that, and when we've tested them, they've gone through the system of being caged. They've gone through the whole thing of paying their debt to society, not reoffending, doing things that are proper and appropriate for them to be considered a law-abiding citizen. Yet they cannot sign for a lease in their names for themselves or their children. They can't even get housing for themselves unless they're able to buy a place, or again, someone put their name on the line for them. This is crazy that no one in our legislative body or in our the administrators of this, or at the Texas Real Estate Commission, or wherever they develop the lease agreements, nobody has said, you know what, we need to take this off. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Because that right there is, even after they take your application fee, that right there is an exclusionary line or exclusionary question immediately for somebody to be able to get housing. Is there anybody out there that has gone to prison who is listening today that can say that they have been able to obtain a lease since they've been released? Is there anybody out there that can attest to there are some people or some places that are commercial leasers who are actually able to put their own key in the door? 512-836-2887. These are real serious questions and thoughts in my mind, because unlike a lot of organizations, Melge has been around a long time, and many people have heard me say many times before, we were here before reentry was a buzzword. And so when I really think about it, and people think about success and say, okay, well, you've been here and you should have a budget that's way this big or whatever. When you are involved in something because you are committed to the cause, whether you have a large budget, a small budget, a medium budget or not, your commitment is not to the money. Your commitment is to the issue and the people that you are serving. And the resources and the provisions will always be made when your intent and everything that you have is focused from a genuine perspective. The provisions will always be made because your commitment is to the issue and to the cause and not to the dollars. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned to the Iron Sharpens Iron Show, and I'm your host, Latrice Cook. We'll be right back to you. And we are back. You are tuned in to Latrice Cook and the Iron Sharpens Iron Show. We have a caller, but right before I take that caller, I just want to give a shout out to the staff at Melge, Miss Shirley, and all those people who hold it down. Thank you for holding it down. And one of our newest interns who's sitting in the studio right now, Miss Emma. I am just so thankful and proud of the people who work so hard in this space to help us help others. Thank you, caller, for holding. You're on the Iron Sharpens Iron Show. We lost him. 512-836-2887 is the number. And so right before we went to break, we were talking about the whole issue of housing and people who have challenged backgrounds, their ability to be able to have a lease in their names and what that means. And I put out something to the callers and to our listening audience. If you know of anyone or yourself who has been able to establish a lease in your name, please give us a call this afternoon so that we can discuss that. 512-836-2887. As a person who's been in this space for a while, it's not just housing. It's still also about how people are managing this issue, how people have become so encroached, if you will, in the name of criminal justice reform, that is so much activism around it. And activism is getting paid well to be an activist, but the people that are being the provider of the resource are not as heavily is not as well oiled or received, because the reality of it is that it's easy to have this discussion. It's another thing to be able to successfully help a individual out of their pain of being a parolee, or as society would call them, an offender or an ex-con. And you know what? If you are in this industry and you haven't grown past calling a person an offender or an ex-con in your descriptive presentation, you need to go back and really reevaluate your real commitment to changing the perception of this population, because those labels are dark connotations and they are offensive, because they are labeling people with a negative that they are still carrying. And you, as a practitioner or activist or whatever it is, or a organization leader, you still refer in your presentations to people as offenders or ex-offenders or convicts. And that language is antiquated at best. And it's a dark connotation, and we have to be careful about what we say and in the language that we use when we are discussing prison and those people that have been touched by prison. So we talked about housing still being a major issue for people who have this ill. But then we talk about how many entities have been thrown dollars for workforce development. And my thing is that, is a person truly ready for the job a month or a week after they walk out of prison? What is workforce development dollars really being used for? Because to try to prepare a person to go to a job is something that needs to be focused on. Because when you have been caged for a month or 20 years, there is irreparable damage that is done. And I can't imagine a person, after being incarcerated for 5 years, I'm just going to go to the minimum 5 years of incarceration, and coming out, and they go to these classes for workforce development, maybe just for a week or whatever, because there's a pending job offer waiting for them. But this person is immediately, you're ready to put them on a job. How is that the best thing for someone who's had this experience when they've been gone for 5 years and the gas pumps have changed, how you even pump gas, how you pay for it, all these things? How is it possible for them to be ready for that when they don't even have possibly the etiquette in the event that they are left to have to answer a phone, and they haven't had to answer a phone in all these years? There has to be an opportunity for that person to shake the prison dust off and to talk to an individual about what it is and who they were before prison. In order for them to be successful, somebody has to listen to where they are
before you put them in a class and send them on somebody's job. If we're at risk with people who've never been to prison, who go in and shoot up a building or whatever, why would we believe that we aren't at risk with why, if we have that kind of risk, then we have the same responsibility to a person who has been adversely affected by this system to give them the opportunity to allow themselves time to capture themselves and to learn how they need to even get back and forth to a job first. And what if their living situation is chaotic? What if they are in a sober house or in a halfway house or living in a car that somebody provided for them? What about those barriers that prohibit them from being successful? Do you even know that? For these entities that have workforce development dollars, do you even find out what it is all the things that they need in order to be successful before sending them to an employer? These type of things are important. Reentry, for whatever it means. I heard somebody in the city in Chicago say, reentry, they're trying to figure out another word for it because reentry was kind of a farce. I have my own concerns about what that word means and what it actually, how people are interpreting reentry in order to get funding for their organizations, and then still not having the success of being able to have people who have had this ill be able to even access the organizations who have these dollars. So concerns this afternoon are about housing, putting people out to work who don't have a support system, who have been in prison. What about those people who are still dealing with substance abuse issues, because we recognize that contraband is so out of control in these institutions? Drugs and alcohol and stuff are readily available to persons who are incarcerated. So now you don't only have a felon being released in the community, you have a chemical dependent person being released back into the community. So now they have a substance abuse issue and they have a felony. How do we cope with this? Who is working with that? Who is addressing this in a total way? What organizations out here are addressing those issues and making sure that the person that's sitting before you, the person you're doing intake on, is being made whole all the way, not just from a fiscal perspective, but from an emotional and a health perspective? Who is ensuring that these persons who come out of the prison system are actually getting medical cards so that they can for the first time possibly in many of their lives, have a full physical? I thought about that. I thought about how I've always had health insurance my entire life, how my kids have always had health insurance, and how a person who has been incarcerated a lot of times come out and they don't even know what it is to have a primary care provider. Who's teaching them about the need for medical attention when they come out, when we recognize that in the prison system and in the jails, Hep C is alive and well, all kind of different ailments associated with respiratory issues. These persons are exposed to horrendous living conditions, and where they're sleeping inside a cell with a toilet, open toilets and stuff like this. And then we bring them out into the community and they have never had a physical done on their bodies ever, except for when they were going inside the prison system and they just do like a well check. Who is ensuring that persons that come out put their health first before they think about a job? They have to put their health first. They have to think about going to see a medical specialist. They have to think about their emotional well-being. Where are you today after being incarcerated? Where are you mentally today? Are you well? What can we do to assist that, to make sure that you're well? the balance of bringing, or the balance of having a life that is wholesome as a person who's never been incarcerated. It's tough to have balance in our lives. But truly, when you have been incarcerated, balance is not even thought about in a lot of ways, because for whatever period of time that they have been in the system, they haven't had much balance. They've been told what to do. They spend many hours of their day, if they don't have their own independence to go and look or drive motivation to get involved in classes or anything like that. The most balance is what shooting, playing cards and dominoes and things like that. How's that balance for 40 hours a week, 7 days, or not even more than 40 hours, 7 days a week? There's no balance in that, because then when they come home, that's not something that they can continue to do and be successful. So these things always go round and round in my mind as we are trying to provide services for persons, as we are looking at other entities who provide or who purport to provide services for this particular population. Are you really? Are you focused on all these things, all these needs? And if so, how is your organization addressing that? Whether it's an organization or a business, how are you addressing the ills that are real for people who have been incarcerated and who are back home in our communities? How are we including people who have been historically excluded from opportunities, up to and including just festivities? When I think about all the entities that have, that come up in our community, and I'm going to just talk Black right now. In the Black community, especially here in Austin, you have what I call recycled people or recycled leaders who do not pick up and include those persons who are considered the least of them. You don't include them in your conversations or invite them to the things that you're having in order for them to become a part of it. Leadership is sharing the limelight and your space with others to help them become developed and help them to learn how to lead themselves. The one thing that I can say is there are a few organizations, and I'm not on here to talk about what the organizations do or don't do, but one of the things that I like was the Brothers Brunch. That was something that was started by the Austin Justice Coalition, and I think that is something that is really good because they open it up to everybody, all the men. I don't believe, and I could be wrong in, if they're listening or somebody can correct me, I don't know that there is anything that limits who can attend that. I don't know if it's some criteria that would be an exclusionary thing for someone, but I believe that it's open to anyone who wants to come, and it's free. And it's an opportunity. They've done different things. I don't know what all they've done. I just thought about that as something, organization that is inclusive of people regardless of what your background is. So, we always have to think about what we are doing and how we are making sure that we're extending those opportunities to people to be a part of and not be feel like they have to have some kind of special place or special recognition in the community in order to be included. MELJ is an organization that definitely works to make sure that those program participants or people who seek out our help feel and know that they are important and that their lives are valued in spite of what they've done. And that we work hard to make sure that those persons get what it is that they call us for, that they need. what they believe that they need in order to balance their life. Balance is important not only for us, but definitely for people who have been incarcerated and their families. Because also the other thing is that when people have been incarcerated, their families lose a lot of their balance and a lot of their normalcy in their lives. Why? Because they have to be there when so-and-so calls on the phone collect, because they don't want that person to miss being able to hear from them. They have to make those trips to the prison to go see their loved ones so that they know that they have somebody out here who cares about them. They have to help with their children in the event that it was a parent who left their child to go to prison. So they have to be there for them. So they get another kid to raise or to help with, and have to explain the entire time that their parent is incarcerated, why they have to go visit mommy or daddy at this facility, and why when they got to the facility after driving 3 hours, the whole facility's on lockdown and they can't see nobody, and nobody even was able to tell them before they took the 3-hour trip there. There are damages that are done to families of people who have been incarcerated and who are currently incarcerated that really removes any and all balance from their lives. 512-836-2887 is the number. 512-836-2887 is the number. Iron sharpens iron. It means something. It's not just a tagline. It means something. That means that we work to try to work to help our brother or our sister be better. And we get in there and we work with and we work alongside of these persons to make them better, because it takes all of us together to help someone who has been removed from our community to get well and to get balance and to get where they need to be, whether it's employed or emotionally stable or stable from drugs or alcohol, whatever it is. That's our responsibility as community members, in order to be saying that we are including everyone in our space and we are concerned about our brother or our sister. Because truly, when you say, am I my brother's keeper? Yes, we are. To a great extent, yes, we are. And that's not a color-coded brother or sister. That means anybody in our community. That means people that are around us. So we're going to just switch gears just a little bit, just because I want to talk about, I definitely want to talk about the conference, and I want to bring one of our staff members on. I want to bring Serafina on so she can talk about we're trying to adjust these mics here, so she can talk about actually her experience and stuff with the American Parole and Probation Association Conference. Good afternoon, Serafina.
Good afternoon. I want to shout out to my mom.
Shout out.
And my sister Katrina and my older sister Clarissa.
Serafina, you've been coming, but you haven't ever been on air. So this is your first time.
First time.
Yes. So definitely giving a shout out to Katrina and your mom and your older sister, who's actually both of which are educators. Is that correct?
Yes.
And educators, where are they educators at?
My mom is a teacher at Roundout in Lake Forest, Illinois. And then my older sister, she is a teacher in North Chicago.
Yay. Yeah. So Serafina is a wonderful implant, I can say. She is actually from Chicago and has been with Melch for a year now, and is a graduate of St. Edward's University, and pursuing her law school thing now. That's her next endeavor. So APPA was your first time going, and you all actually went to some different things, and just talk a little bit about your experience at APPA and what that was like.
Well, I loved being home. I love sightseeing Chicago. My favorite part of the APPA conference would probably be the tours.
Nice.
there was a place called Sky Art, and it was south side of Chicago, and they working on art projects with youth and also for the formerly incarcerated adults as well. They recently had a project where probation officers brought their parolees, and it was really odd. They said it was awkward at first, and then eventually they created art, a big piece of art all together, and it was like 35 feet long.
Wow.
So that was pretty exciting to hear. And then it really inspired not only me, but also Colin, our other intern. And he was like talking to me, he's like, we should be able to like start our own art program, find something like in Austin. I'm like, well, we should, yeah.
What did you, that's very interesting because I know we didn't get a lot of opportunity to talk about that, but what do you feel in what you all saw that was helpful to the juvenile delinquent? What about the art part was real impactful? What was it about it that was impactful that you all thought, this is something we need to bring back to Austin?
I think it was mostly that seeing like all the examples of art that they had, people were able to express themselves like through art. Even with art therapy, they have a social worker there, and they have one-on-one sessions with little kids. Sometimes they make them dance just to get them all comfortable, and it was just really interesting. Like they created like this piece of art that looked like a tent, and they go in there to feel safe.
Wow.
So it was a really exciting experience.
Yes. And what was the name of that again?
It was Sky Art.
Sky Art.
Yeah. I know when I first thought of it, I was like, well, and I introduced it to someone at APPA. They're like, Sky Art, are you guys going in the sky? I was like, no.
Yeah, the name can sometimes be deceptive.
Exactly. And then the other tour was the Women's Justice Institute.
Talk about that.
That one was really powerful, and I really liked that one because the panel consisted of everyone women mostly, who were formerly incarcerated,
yeah,
and seeing how they grew and became leaders and trying to help others that have been through the same experience as them.
So, and that was actually something that I went to as well, and it was a phenomenal experience. Now, the lady who spearheaded that effort, I actually had met her in Boston, and she actually showed the video that they showed that day. They had actually showed the video in Boston, and I remember how much energy was in the room because that was the first time people had seen a presentation, not so much the first time they had seen women who had previously been incarcerated, but the way that presentation was developed, the film, it was amazing. Those women who were actually in the film, unlike in Boston, they were actually women who were residents who were from Chicago, and they were there, and they were really powerful. Their experience was powerful. The things that they talked about, how they got into being incarcerated. One who started a life of delinquent behavior as a juvenile, and who got basically certified as an adult on one of the cases, and how she ended up going to prison. And I think she went for like 15 or 20 years. Yeah. And how she's out, owns her own home, just all these things. And then also how Mayor Lori Lightfoot has actually developed within the city of Chicago. She has developed a re-entry space that is city funded. It's a city department. And so hats off to Mayor Lightfoot for doing that and for seeing a need in that. And so the APPA conference, as we were saying, I said earlier on, is really something that I feel anybody who's in the field of criminal justice at any point of criminal justice needs to go. Yeah,
it was. I think the most awkward part for me was probably I felt like we were the only nonprofit there, and they were mostly parole officers, probation, and it was just, at first it was nerve-wracking, like I was wearing my Mel shirt to the first time attendees, and I didn't win the popcorn, so that was sad.
And we did bring Garrett's popcorn back, but that just goes to show you also that the system has not really still embraced the aspect of people coming home, which is why I was saying to our listening audience that, just to see that they have new devices and stuff that are even being made for tracking purposes, more sensitive things being made so that they can watch people more closely. And when you're in that environment, it is a lot of people who are more on the punitive side of what we do. So it's always interesting because they're always interested in who we are and what brings us there as well. But I think that's a great observation that you have in just being able to see that. And it's definitely better than it was, because for sure there are more organizations there who are working towards in the reentry space or social activism space, and that used to not be there. So any takeaways right now just from your work with Melch?
Well, I've been working with Melch since January when I started my internship. And after I graduated from St. Ed's, I stayed with Melch. I was really passionate about it since I applied for it in October, I believe. I know, I would call Latrice every time. She would call me, when I would be able to start. And so I was always looking forward to it. I had all these opportunities, but I chose Melch because I liked the mission. I love the mission that Melch has. I love to help people. I have a big heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my favorite part is just being able to meet these persons and being able to help them, like the guy that we got boots for so he couldn't be able to start his job.
Yes.
And he was so happy over just a pair of boots.
And I think a lot of times that we really don't think about, it's just really the small things of, including people and making sure that what they need, somebody's hearing from them. Sometimes it's just the ability for a person to talk through their situation and having staff members there just for that. Reentry can't be successful without the persons who are sitting behind these desks or on the phones listening, and not just hearing, but listening to what the person is saying their ill is. A lot of times people say, people come out of prison, they cry, they think the world owes them something. No, but what we do owe people is we owe people respect and an opportunity to present their issue, whatever it is, and not count people out for being vocal about whatever their issue is and what the system has done. Because the one thing that we know for sure is that there is no rehabilitative point of prison. It's very non-rehabilitating. It takes self-motivation in order to rehabilitate yourself within these walls. You're listening to the Iron Sharpens Iron show, and I'm your host, Latrice Cook, and we are going to pay a little bills here, and we'll be right back to you. 512-836-2887 is a call-in number. We'll be right back. And we are back. You are tuned into Iron Sharpens Iron, and I am Latrice Cook. And so we will be back on air next Wednesday, September 14th. And so in advance of that is actually a date I should be able to remember, because that is my baby sister's birthday. So who is a accomplished musician and mother, grandmother, all those things. So shout out to Sarisa Eldridge Bates in advance of your birthday. And if I make it back, Lord willing, on next Wednesday, I'll be able to say that again. So we were talking about the APPA conference, our experience there. One of the reasons why we are without guests this morning or this afternoon is because we wanted to be able to talk about our experience there and talk about some other issues, and also because I thought I was going to get to unpack the whole Black Fund situation, but I'm not quite ready for that yet because I want to get some audio for you. But I do want to say that this space of working with this population has been so rewarding, and actually even to have the show Iron Sharpens Iron show here at KZI has been a phenomenal experience in so many ways. We have been able to bring so many people on this show over the past 7 or 8 years that have talked about different things from different perspectives and from different fields, whether it has been the district attorneys from Bastrop, from Dallas County, and I always think about the one from Dallas County because he was such a phenomenal part of reform and also making sure that people that have been wrongfully incarcerated were not only exonerated but that they also were compensated. So I can never stop giving accolades and kudos, although he is not in practice in that particular as a district attorney anymore. I cannot ever stop giving accolades to Craig Watkins for the big steps he took and the risk he took to make sure that people who had wrongfully been incarcerated were not only exonerated, but that him and Rodney Ellis would come up with a design of how much money a person was able to receive for each year that they had been wrongfully incarcerated. So hats off to those persons who worked in and around Craig Watkins, who knows who I'm talking about and knows that. And my point is that here as a host for the Iron Sharpens Iron show, we have had many well-read, well-known people who have made a tremendous difference in this space throughout Texas, throughout the country, in our immediate local area, in our state. And this space has allowed me as a host here at the radio station to give them a voice and an audience so that they could hear and they could learn and even have access, if need be, to people who make a difference in this space. Most recently, we had the director for the mental health, Travis County Mental Health Public Defender's office here, and she shared how she wanted to expand some of the things that they were doing in a bigger way and the support that they have received now, because people are really recognizing that incarceration is serious and it's not. And if you didn't have a mental health issue when you went in prison, you probably will have one when you come out. And so just recognizing that this is a real situation and that people are really adversely affected for the rest of their lives by the incarceral system, and having people who can speak to that and testify to that come on here and share with you has been a phenomenal thing. And then this hour that I have at this time of day, I hope that that as you all are driving to and from back to lunch or wherever it is that you're going, wherever it is that you're headed to, that this show has definitely given you something to think about and to pursue knowledge on. Because if you're fortunate enough to not have had a family member or anybody you know go to prison, then may the Lord bless and keep you, and that's great. But for those that have that situation that haven't had, hopefully this show will help you to become concerned about those neighbors or those persons who have this ill and support entities that have signed up to assist this population and their families. So we hope that during this time of day, that as you're in your travels, that you learn and also become enlightened to action to help this particular population and their families in some shape, form, or fashion. Everybody is important. Everybody has a reason that you breathe every day. Everybody has a purpose. And so even if you don't lead, you can assist those that do lead. How can I do that? I can do that by finding out what it is that I can help to help them to stay afloat. What it is that I can do to help them to be able to expand their voices or their missions. That is a way that we can do this. You are important to the work of those of us who are out here in the community doing the work. Your place in being able to support is not only through monetary support, but also through verbal support, giving the information out that you learned today to people who may need the assistance of an organization like ours or a show like ours. 512-836-2887 as we're coming up on the hour. And you can also reach us at Melge Justice Center at 512-473-2525, 512-473-2525. So next week, we plan to bring on Urban Alchemy, which is a new nonprofit to the Austin area, although they are based out of Los Angeles, California. They actually have taken over the Arch, and I was contacted by their CEO, who will be here in Texas on next week. And so they will be a part of the show. Really looking forward to speaking with them and seeing what they're going to do with this big homeless initiative and as it refers to people who have previously been incarcerated. So excited about that. It's important for us to recognize that this is really a situation that is alive and well. There has not been a blank canvas for us to paint away all these issues that are faced with, that people are faced with who have been incarcerated or their families. There's no blank canvas for that. Although there is a place for all of us to do some type of work in helping making things better, we definitely have to, we want to acknowledge that, and we want to encourage you to try to help make things better. So I just want to spin back real quick to housing. And I want to tell you that we have a huge project that is on the way. And because I can't give out all the information about it, I just want to encourage you, if you don't support, if you haven't supported our initiatives, you might want to start supporting this. And if you're interested in knowing how you can do that, please contact our office. I'm sure Miss Shirley is sitting by the phone waiting for you to call 512-473-2525, because housing is truly an issue. And it's not just affordable housing, as much as it is housing for people who have this particular challenge. One of the things we're called about a lot is people don't have housing. People don't have a place to stay. Junior can't stay at the house no more. I don't like his girlfriend, all kind of stuff that we hear. And that is really a big issue. We have spent thousands of dollars in the last 3 or 4 years on placing people in housing that we can put them up for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or at the most maybe a month at a time. But because that housing is very limited, it also handcuffs us to be able to successfully keep someone stable in housing for a longer period of time, because we only have about, at the most, a maximum of a month that we can actually put someone in housing at one of our partnered, one of our partners who has housing available. So when we get off the air, one of the things that people are calling about is, hey, we heard you on the air. We love what you do. I need a place to live. Housing is tough for people that don't have a felonious background. So, if it's tough for that, you can imagine that if you do, it's 7 times as tough. And so we don't have a real answer to that ill besides the little bit of stuff that we do as an organization, and it's very costly. And so with bearing that in mind, I look at all of the housing initiatives that have gone forth or that are out there right now, and we just want to say to those persons that have the ear and the purse for housing, I think it's important that you contact us, as we have plenty of people that we can refer to you that may even have your vouchers, and their vouchers, they can't even use their vouchers that they've been given. And so I think that we have to really think about how we can refer those persons to you all if indeed you have housing opportunities available. You have definitely been listening to the Iron Sharpens Iron show. I'm not sure if we have a caller here or not. Okay, because we're right up against an hour. I would like to tell everyone who's listening, if there is some entity that you are interested in supporting, please support that, and also support KAZI. At 40 years of service to this community, we can't do this work. We can't be here without your financial support. Please give to KAZI 88.7 FM. There are so many ways that you can do this. You can go onto the website and do that. You can call in. You can send in your tax deductible check via the mail. There are so many ways to be able to contribute to KAZI. I want to encourage you to do that, whether Iron Sharpens Iron continues on or whatever. Support this radio station. Support the efforts that have been made to make information available to you here in the community. I appreciate every listener today. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your listenership. And to everybody who I'm supposed to shout out and I didn't shout out, from Latrice Cook here at the Iron Sharpens Iron Show. I am your host. We will be back here next Wednesday at 12 to 1, September 14th, to put some flavor in your ear. And your success is important to us.
I got to get in contact with Scooby. I say